And I'm saying this is our chance.
Well, you're right, but Wayne, we cannot lose, even if they steal the election down the road, by Ron running and by everybody supporting him. This is the greatest awakening in people learning about the Federal Reserve and the New World Order we've ever seen, Wayne.
That's absolutely right. That's why I tell my friends and neighbors we live in the most exciting times of our life, because we've never had an opportunity like this in my lifetime, and I'm 70 years old. And I think it's exciting. I think it's definitive, and I think it is going to be something that's going to surprise everybody, because the time is now.
It certainly is. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's on Infowars.com. But Huntsman, who's worked for Obama as a total one-worlder, he's running an ad playing clips of your brother talking about George Herbert Walker Bush calling for a new world order. I mean, those are all public clips. How is your brother bad for admitting that world leaders want a world government and that we shouldn't be part of that? I mean, how is saying the sky is blue bad?
I totally understand what you're saying. I just admire my brother for being able to stay positive through all the flinging that's going on.
Yeah, he's done that. Let's, for folks that, obviously aren't Ron Paul's brother, you guys have a large family. Growing up, how would you, characterize him in the family, and then, throughout his life? What type of person is Ron Paul, and what do you make of all of these, taking out of tens of thousands of newsletters, taking, 10 lines or something and conflating them with other things, and then attacking your brother?
Well, as a little bit of background, there are 5 boys in our family. Ron is the middle of 5 boys. My mother and father ran a processing dairy business in the basement of our house, which was a 4-room house. And they did that up until I believe I was in 5th or 6th grade, before they moved the processing business from the basement of a house to a separate building. And we were always taught, my mother and father had to work 7 days a week. And when we were old enough to wear some boots and could wash some cans that were in the basement, we put the boots on and went to work. And that's just the way we were taught and raised. But every Sunday morning, regardless of the fact we had to work, we took time off and went to Sunday school and church. The 5 of us had a paper route, starting with my oldest brother down to me. When I gave up the route, we had close to 300 customers we delivered paper to every day, and they had to divide it up into 3 paper routes after we gave it up, because nobody would take it.
All right. I mean, tell us more. Tell us about your parents.
Well, Mom and Dad were always hard workers. They were always well-grounded in their faith, and they didn't ever try to beat anything into us. They just expected us to turn around and go to Sunday school and church, and it was just a way of life for us, and there was never a problem. The only problem my mom and dad had is when we were sitting in church on Sunday morning, they couldn't divide themselves among 5 boys, so there were always 2 sitting together, and of course any 2 sitting together agitated each other, so they always had a problem to keep us calm for the service that lasted maybe 45 minutes or an hour. But other than that, we were perfect children,
Now, how would you describe Ron Paul? I mean, at his core, what drives your brother?
Well, even when Ron was in high school, before he had a driver's license, he worked in a drugstore making sodas and sundaes. And then at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, or Friday and Saturday night, he'd get on his bicycle, and it'd take him, it's about a mile from the house, and he would bicycle home. We all worked in the dairy on a daily basis. Once we got licenses, we drove milk trucks every day. We all five of us put our way through college. When Ron went to college, he went to Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania. When he was a sophomore, I believe, and I could be wrong on the exact date, but I think he was married roughly in his sophomore year. When he graduated from Gettysburg College, I believe he had maybe one or two children, and he went to South Carolina to graduate school. And after that, he went to the Air Force for 5 years. Then he went back to get another degree in Michigan. Then he came back to Pennsylvania and got his doctor's certificate as obstetric and gynecology doctor. And then he went into practice. So he always worked. He always, of course, we always try to kid him a little bit to keep him humble. We always say he was the spoiled one of the five of us. And as long as there's four of us around, we win the battle.
Now, what about, their false claims of racism and things like that? I mean, because from people I know that, know your brother well, and of course what's coming out in the media, I mean, he would volunteer quite a bit always at the charity hospitals to help people.
Well, not only that, but he never took Medicare. If a patient come in to his office, he took care of them. If they didn't have the money, they made an agreement as to how they were going to get paid, and he took care of them, but he never took Medicare any time while he was being a doctor.
That's right. Never took it, and in many cases would just give people free health care is what ended up happening. Yeah. I mean, so this is, and particularly for quote minorities, I mean, most doctors would just turn you away right there. But there's your brother, hardworking, living by example of his parents, all the things he's done, truly understands the issues, and that's why the system's so scared of him, because they know he can't be bought and there's no skeletons in his closet.
Right, and they're trying to make up the skeletons as they go, so they go back 20 years to pick up one article in one newspaper about 8 or 10 lines long, and they're trying to hang their hat on that. But the problem they have with that statement is his life does not depict what they're trying to make it be. So the life, the honesty, the integrity, truth prevails. And what he is what he is, and that's the problem they have.
Well, you're right, but it does show the awakening is huge, that despite the lying Decepticon media telling everybody that Ron Paul can't win, he now is the front runner, and they are in full panic mode. What are some of the dirty tricks you're expecting them to pull, Wayne?
Well, I'm concerned not about the caucus meetings tonight in Iowa, because I believe the people in the individual precincts and caucus meetings are the grassroots, serious-minded individuals, and that means it doesn't matter who they support, any one of the candidates. They're normally very dedicated, hardworking people that are going to work for the person they believe that is right. I believe those precinct numbers will be honest, sincere in every way, shape, or form. My concern would be what happens when they go to a secret place and tally the votes. That is not transparency, and they can use whatever excuse they want that they want to prevent disruption. If they want to prevent disruption, go to downtown Des Moines, sit in a public square, and have each precinct captain bring in the vote. And you think it's going to be disrupted? It's not going to be. But they don't want to make it transparent, and that's the biggest thing that frightens me.
Well, I agree with you, and undoubtedly there's going to be election fraud. There was 4 years ago, but if there's a big enough, in places like New Hampshire, there's a big enough landslide, they have trouble spinning it and cooking it. We're going to have the top election fraud investigator, former federal fraud investigator, Bev Harris, on the radio show and the TV show tomorrow in the aftermath to break all this down and to track it into the next primaries and caucuses that are coming up. But I want to state this again. You only lose not supporting Ron Paul. You only lose not hitting the street and getting very aggressive with the message of liberty. Because even if they engage in all this fraud and stuff, we win by injecting real issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I see almost another 50 or 60% more knowledgeable people today as it deals with the issues than it was 4 years ago.
You just said it. You just said it.
They read more, they know more, and they have come to the point where they're not going to put up with the baloney that the mainstream puts out. They're just not going to do it.
Well, it's like your brother Ron Paul said 2 nights ago. In fact, I meant to pull this clip up when he was on Fox TV on the weekend, and the host, was saying, well, do you think you'll slip in Iowa as Santorum and people surge? And your brother Ron Paul said, no. Once people convert to liberty and put together all the pieces of it and understand how things work, there's no going back.
Right.
And I mean, that's the issue. Ron Paul's not filling people through with his ideology. He's getting people to rediscover history, rediscover common sense, rediscover what made America great versus the horrible stuff we're being sold by the establishment. It's the establishment that's got something to hide. It's the establishment that's discredited and kooky, not Ron Paul. And every month we exponentially grow, and that's why the system's scared.
Yep. They, as I said initially on this program, they can't handle the truth. And I have to believe, as a God-fearing Christian, that truth is going to prevail. And economically, we still are going to have to take on the $16 trillion that we found out about. That's going to come up in the next 6 to 9 months. And the truth is going to prevail.
And by the way, it's not just the 16+ trillion given to foreign banks via the Federal Reserve of our tax money and Bernanke and others lying to Congress about it. Now we're learning there's trillions more going out. I mean, this is a big deal. The crooks running things are stealing trillions and telling us it's our debt.
And Alex, one of the other things that concerns me as a brother to Ron is that I have studied enough history in the last 40 years to understand the tight wire that he is walking in terms of what the establishment is willing to put up with. They've been able to control and stick him in a hole somewhere and not have to deal with him. But those times are changing now, so each day as it changes, I am in greater fear of his life for he and his family.
No, you're right, but he's committed to it as a champion. But no, let's elaborate on this after the break. This is the next point I wanted to raise. We're right on the same page together.
We're on the march.
All right, we're going back to Wayne Paul, brother of Ron Paul, great anti-Federal Reserve, pro-America activist for decades. In fact, that's one question I want to ask him and then go to a few calls is specifically, what got Wayne and Ron involved in all this. We'll talk to him just in a moment and also talk about Ron Paul's safety. But first off, A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, 1995. It's a DVD film that